This video is for my fellow non-salaried kin. It's for those that are working in the restaurant industry, those that are working in sales, those that are working as substitute teachers, or otherwise have jobs where it is your responsibility to ensure that you are putting in enough input, whatever that input is for you, to get back the amount of money that you need to be able to survive. I'm gonna show you in this video a very systematic process, a tool that you can use to track and manage the amount of input that you're putting in and the amount of dollars that you're getting out so that you can have clarity over your money. I'm gonna tell you, it does require a little bit of maintenance on your part, but it is so worth it to have that clarity around your money. Let's take a look. All right, welcome to Airtable. What you're looking at right now is a database that I have created for myself that I call Key Metrics up here in the top left corner. I track a lot of different things with this database and it continues to grow and evolve. And I've used other tools as well to track and create different processes and types of data and all that. But what we're gonna focus on in this video is money tracking, right? For me, in particular, I have two jobs. Two jobs if you don't count Airbnb host, and then also not count content creation since I'm not making money yet. But two jobs where I actually go in and work the work in order to get paid. Those for me are Texas Roadhouse and substitute teaching. And the first thing where I want to start with this video is, why would you want to do this in the first place? Why would you want to track your money? For me, my goal with tracking and making plans around these two jobs is not necessarily what you might expect, which would be to maximize the amount of money I'm making. That would seem like the first kind of obvious thing that you would want to do, right? But actually, my goal ultimately is to grow out of my two jobs and into content creation. If I was to simply want to maximize the amount of money that I'm making from both of these jobs, then I would just simply work as much as I possibly can. But instead, my goal is long term to make the majority of my income from content creation. And so what I want to do is I want to know how little work between these two jobs can I get away with, still be able to meet my bills, and therefore any extra time that I have, I can invest that back into content creation. Okay, so for me, I've worked out that magic number for me is $4,000 a month. I have determined that if I make about $4,000 a month, that is enough to cover my mortgage, my car payment, the amount that I spend on groceries, gasoline, all that stuff. I've taken into account all that stuff by looking at my expense history. And it covers my bills as well as gives me a little bit of cushion for putting away maybe a little bit of money for savings, maybe spending some money on investing in upgraded equipment for my YouTube channel, all that stuff. That's my magic number, is about $4,000 a month. And then in order to earn that between my two jobs, after taking into account my rental income from Airbnb, I've worked out that I have to work about 80 hours a month at Texas Roadhouse, plus 8 days a month substitute teaching. Now, as a quick note, of course, because I work these two flexible jobs, one of the benefits of being in that position as compared to somebody that's salaried, one of the advantages that you have is you can slice and dice this in a multitude of ways. If I wanted to work less hours at Texas Roadhouse and make up for that with extra days substitute teaching, I could totally do that. Or I could do the reverse. Or I could also invest extra into my rental income by, for example, opening up another rental income stream by renting out a second guest bedroom, which is one of the things I'm planning on doing in time. But again, that's totally depends on your situation. It's totally up to you. Okay, so here's what I want with this database. Number one is I want data entry. I want to be able to input the data that I'm interested in tracking as I retrieve it. For us, in this database, we want to track how many hours we're working at our first job, how many days we're working at our second job, how much money we're being paid, so not the estimated earnings, which we'll discuss later, but the actual money I'm being paid. So every paycheck, or at the end of the night, sometimes if I'm serving at Texas Roadhouse, I'll get paid out in cash. And in that case, I consider that like a paycheck, and I record that here. Same thing with my other job. If I get paid a paycheck from my other job, I'll record that here, and that way I can separate the two and I see how much money I'm making from each one. After data entry, we come over to our monthly table where I have my summaries. I want to first summarize my work metrics. That is, for the current month is generally the one I'm most interested in. I want to see how many hours have I worked at my first job so far, and how many substitute teaching days have I put in so far, so that I can see where I'm at in terms of progress toward those minimum thresholds of 80 hours and 8 days for me. And then from there, I can also create a formula column which will calculate my estimated amount of money that I've earned from these two jobs using the amount of money that I get paid on an hourly basis or a daily basis multiplied by how much I worked between those two jobs. And then finally, we have my earnings metrics, where we're going to be ignoring these three over here. But for this video, we're going to look at income. This is where I know how much money I've actually been paid in the month of September so far. All right, here we are. You have made an Airtable account. You've gone in and created your first table, and now you're here on the blank page. The first thing that we want to do is delete all of these extra fields that we don't want. I'm going to select the first one, hold Shift, click the last one, right click anywhere and click delete. Everything, by the way, all of my settings are in Spanish throughout this video. There's going to be a lot of Spanish on screen, but don't worry, I'll walk you through in English. I'm going to click delete. And now the first part of our table, remember we're making the daily check-in first, is what I call it, daily check-in. The first thing we want is it's called our primary field, to become a date field. So I'm going to change the type. I'm going to double click, come down here to the drop down menu. Fecha is date in Spanish, so date. And then you can change the format if you want. I want it to be US format so that I don't get confused, because in Spanish it's different. It's day and then month instead of month and then day. Save. And then I'm going to change the name of the field as well. I'm going to call it date instead of name. Now we want to actually fill in these dates with all of the dates of the current calendar year. The easiest way to do that is to make the records themselves first, and then we're going to go back and fill them in with dates. So if you come down here to the last column or the last cell, you can hold Shift and then click Enter. Every time you click Enter while you're holding Shift, it'll add a new record. You can hold Enter while you're holding Shift, and it'll do this, add more and more and more. So you can do that all the way to 365. Okay, so I've got 365 rows now. If I come back all the way up to the top and I type in a few dates by hand, 1/1, 1/2, 1/3. Now I can select all of these and use this little corner thing. It's similar to Excel. Unfortunately, I can't double click and it'll fill all of them for me. For some reason, Airtable doesn't do that. I don't know why. But I can just manually scroll while holding that mouse down all the way to the bottom. And then when I let go, it'll start filling them for me. Okay, the next thing we want, come back all the way up to the top. Now we're going to fill out the rest of the properties, is what they're called in Airtable. The fields that we're interested in tracking. We have hours for our first job, so I'm going to call this, I'm going to actually give it a type first. It's a time or a duration field, so I'm going to come down and look for duration, or if you can't find it, you can type in here to search. Duration, I'm going to call it Texas Roadhouse hours. and I want it to be in this format where it shows me the hours and then the minutes. If you wanted to show seconds, you could. I don't know why you would though. Text route as hours, and then we have substituting days, which would be a number field. So it's going to be this one, number, and it can be a decimal because I can work a day or I can work a half day. So I'm going to leave that as it is. If you wanted to get rid of the decimal, you could do that here. And then I'm going to call it sub days. And then we have our actual realized earnings from each of our jobs. So I'm going to call it the first one. I need this field type is money, or I think in English it's called currency, but in Spanish it's moneda. You can call this, I'm going to say Texas Roadhouse income, and this is fine. The $sign is perfect. And then one more, I'm actually as a shortcut so that I don't have to search for it again, I can just right click this one and click on duplicate field. And then I can come up here, it's the same, it's the right type already. Now I just have to change the name. I'm going to call it substituting income. Now, if you're making this, depending on when you're making this in the year, it may or may not be worth it to you to go back into all the previous days. I'm recording this video in September, so I would have to go back through 8 months of data and fill out every single day by hand. If you wanted to do that, you're more than welcome to. But if you don't care about that and you just want to go to today and start recording data from now into the future, you can immediately create the filter that we use over here in order to specify that I only want to see today and the past handful of days. That's how I've done it. And you can customize it to your own liking. The way we're going to do that is I want to have two conditions. I want to filter this database so that I see the date so that the date is either on or after 2 days before, is what this says, 2 days before today, and it is the same day or before today. It might sound complicated, but it works. So we're gonna go, date is the same day, is on or after a certain number of days before. Number of days before is what this says. I'm gonna say 2 days before so that I can have some slack and see the couple of days before in case I've got to put in an entry or something. And then I also have to meet the condition that the date is the same day or before today. That way I'm seeing only 3 days at a time, and this will automatically shift up every day that passes so that I'm only seeing today and a couple of days prior. Okay, so look at that. We're really close to being done. As quick as that was, I mean, you can see how similar it already looks to our finished database. I can fix the column adjustments, the column widths if I want, make these a little bit tighter. And then you can start inputting numbers. Let's say I worked 4 hours last night. Oh, not 4 minutes. 4 hours. Maybe I worked a sub day on the 7th, and then I was paid $220 today, etc. And then now we want to create our summary tables. So I'm going to come over here to this add or import button. You're going to click add new table, but this, not the first one because they have AI now. You could probably use that. I never have, not yet. But I'm going to start from 0, and I'm going to call this second table monthly. Okay, so for the monthly table, the first thing I want to do, if I'm looking at my finished database, I want to first write the names of each record that are going to be in my database. So for me, it's going to be all of the months of the year. I'm going to call this January 2025, February 2025, okay. And now, in order to be able to order this table, I also want to create a field that tells me the last day of each of those months so that I can filter and sort by that date. If I tried to sort with this field, because it's a name field, it's going to go in alphabetical order. And so it would be like April 1st and then August and then whatever the next one is. And that's nonsense. That's not how we order months. And so we need a date field that tells Airtable and makes sense to Airtable so that it knows, oh, okay, we want to do it in this order instead. I'm going to put the last day. The other reason I do that is because I record other metrics in this database beyond what we're going over in this video. And the last day is relevant in terms of capturing a snapshot picture of how many YouTube subscribers I have, for example, because at the last day of the month, that's when I check in and I write, this is how many YouTube subscribers I have at the end of the month. So that's another reason why it's relevant. Okay, so what we're going to do, just like we did last time, click that one, click this one with Shift, and then right-click Delete. I'm going to create a date field, call it last day. Okay, and then I want to fill in the last day of each of these months. If you type in the month number, it'll show you a little snippet calendar, and that way it'll make it really easy to tell which day is the last day of each month. Okay, so this part is optional, but at this point I like to order the database by the date field. I like to specify that because that way, in case I forgot a month or if I'd made a duplicate or if I need to add more later, it just tells Airtable to specifically order this table by the date field so that it's always in correct order. I don't have to worry about it ever being out of order. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to start summarizing our data using these fields like this. This is called a roll-up field. It's compilación in Spanish. It's a roll-up field. That's that symbol right there. And it tells us for each given month, this is how many hours I worked based on the daily entries that I've been making. Substitute teaching, the same thing. And then the estimated earnings we'll take care of a little later. But in order to make a roll-up field, the first thing we have to do is create a relationship between my monthly table and my daily table. This is one of the core differences between spreadsheets and databases. In a relational database is what this is actually called. A relational database, one of the core benefits of having it as compared to a spreadsheet is those relationships enable you to minimize redundancy in your data and to simplify a lot of the formulas and the cross-referencing that you would otherwise have to do in Excel. So in order to make a relationship between monthly and daily, the first thing I'm going to do is create a field for relationships. I'm going to come down here and look for relación. Oh, okay. I was looking for relation, but it turns out it's actually called vincular a otro registro. This is linked to another registry, I guess, which would be like another table. So I'm going to go link to another registry and then click on daily check-in. I'm going to ignore that for now. Permit linking to multiple records. That's fine. I'm going to ignore this. Okay, so here's what we just did. On this side, every time if I click in here, it'll show me all the records that I made in my daily check-in. If you remember, it's every single day of the year. For January, the ones that I want to be relevant to this record in my monthly table are all the days in January. So I could do it on this end, but I think it's actually going to be easier if I come back here to my daily check-in. I'm going to unfilter these. I'll actually create a new view so I don't get rid of that view that I really like. I'm going to come over and create a new view. Call this all. And then I can move this to the top. I can now see all of my records. And it's going to be easier now that I'm on in my daily. You can see that the linked field that we made on this side, it also is showing up on this side. And that's because it's a relationship. You've created a link between the two tables. So on this side now, what I want to do is for each day of January, I'm going to click into monthly and type January record. There's a relationship between those two. And you could get rid of the option to add more than one, so that in order to do that, you double click and uncheck permit linking to multiple records, because it's not going to be possible on this side of the table to link January 1st to both January and February. Does that make sense? Whereas in here, January can have and will have January 1st and January 2nd and January 3rd and so on. So all I'm going to do is just come in here and type in. Okay, so for sake of time, I did a little bit of January and then I skipped all the way to September, and then I filled in all the dates for September. So if you see in here, if I go in, you can see all the dates for September are all entered in here. If you wanted to go back through and do all of the months again, you could. It is unfortunately a little bit tedious, I get that. But the good news is that you only have to do it once at the very beginning of the year, and then you have it for the entire year. And if you wanted to do it for future years too, you could do that basically the same thing. The only thing you would have to do is just duplicate the database and then change the dates in here from 2025 to 2026. But for now, we're good. We've got the links that we need, that we're interested in. I'm gonna filter this view now so that I only see the current month and the future months. That's how we have it over here. That's how we have it here. I only see the current month and then the rest of the months of the year. So in order to do that, I'm gonna come up here to filter, add a condition. The last day field is going to be on or after today's date. And now we can create our roll-up fields. Come down here and look for roll-up. I'm gonna do Texas Roadhouse hours. It should automatically link to your daily field or your daily table, because that's the only other one we have in the database. And then I want to choose the field that I want. In my case, it's Texas Roadhouse hours for this one. And then sum is perfect. It's going to add all of the values. Okay. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to right click and duplicate this. And then this one I'm going to call sub days. How many days have I subbed so far this month? I'm going to do the same thing, but just use the field sub days instead. Sum up the values again. Save, and I can see how many days I've subbed as well. And we can test this. So it's telling me that I've worked 4 hours so far in Texas Roadhouse. Let's say that then, I'm going to go into this view. I'm going to call this today. Now let's say that I worked again tonight, which I plan to. I'm on the schedule tonight. And I worked another 4 hours and 25 minutes. Okay, so how long would I therefore have worked this month so far? At this point, it should be 8 hours and 25 minutes. We come back over here and it looks perfect. The math is done for us. We're good to go. All right, so we're almost done here. The last two things that I want to do are summarize my estimated income based on how much work I've done this month, and then my total realized income based on how many dollars I've actually been paid this month. Okay, so let's start by estimating our earnings based on how many hours/days that we've worked, or how many sales that we've closed or leads that we've generated, whatever metric it is that you get paid for. We're going to make a new field. This is going to be a formula field, our first one, I believe, in this video. Come down, look for the formula field, and it's very simple. You know your situation. You know how much you get paid per input that you're getting paid for, and you multiply that rate by the field that contains the total that has your total input that you earned. And then if you have multiple jobs, you simply add them together. I'm going to add, I get paid $150 a day as a substitute teacher, multiplied by how many sub days I worked total that month. That should give me my total estimated earnings for the month of September. I do want to change the format so that it is in the form of money or currency. This is obviously not correct yet. No, what happened here was this. Here's kind of a pro tip. When you're working in Airtable, what happened here is the duration field, which is what we are summarizing with the Texas Roadhouse hours. It's pulling that duration data, and the number that then is used to multiply by the rate that you've given is the number of seconds that is contained in that number. So in other words, 8 hours and 25 minutes is some ridiculous, really large amount of seconds. And the way that you calculate that to convert this into a way that makes sense for this formula is we're going to divide by 3,600 because there are 3,600 seconds per hour. And so when you divide any duration field that you need to multiply by in a way that makes sense so that you're multiplying by the hours and not the seconds, you just divide by 3,600 and now it'll make sense. Okay, at this point, I'm actually going to change the name of this view to work metrics. You might also call it input metrics because this is all about, am I putting in the sufficient number of hours / days / RFPs. When I was working in solar sales, a request for proposal is what that was called. Any kind of input metric like that. This is the view where you're looking at all that data and looking at your estimated earnings and whether it's sufficient based on your goals. Okay, and then I'm going to make another view. I don't want to create from scratch. I want to duplicate this one so that it saves all of my filtering and stuff that I've done so far. Duplicate, and then call this one money metrics, or you might call it something like fruit metrics because this is the fruit of your labor. It's how much you're actually getting paid. And what I want to see is in the month of X, whatever month, how many dollars was I paid from this job? How many dollars was I paid from this job? So we're going to make another roll-up field. And this time I want to summarize not the Texas Roadhouse hours, but the Texas Roadhouse income. And then I can move this over here. It actually doesn't matter. We're going to filter it out here in a second anyway. And then I can do the same thing for substitute teaching. Okay, but the reason that we created the new view is because I want to focus on these fields in this view and these ones in the other one. So I'm going to filter out and hide the ones that I don't care about in the money metrics. The money metrics, I want to hide Texas Roadhouse hours and sub days and estimated earnings so that I'm only seeing how much money I'm actually getting paid. And then back in work metrics, because I made those new fields, I'm going to have to come back here and fix this. I don't want to see Texas Roadhouse income or subbing income. I'm only interested in the inputs and the estimated output based on those inputs.